All right. Let's begin. This is the endorsement interview for House District 27. And I would like to ask each of the candidates to take a moment and introduce themselves and give maybe a 2-minute introduction of who you are.
Oops.
Aaron, you went back on mute. I'm pretty sure I know what you're saying. So give a 2-minute introduction of who you are, why you're running, also whether or not you've run for a public office before, to Sandra. I know, Sheri, you're the incumbent. So yeah, sounds good. Why don't we start with Sheri?
Okay. Well, I'm Representative Sheri Schouten. I'm running for my 3rd term as state representative for House District 27, which is Beaverton and Southwest Portland. I initially ran because I had a 30+ year career as a public health nurse working for Multnomah County Health Department. And all of that was focused on families, women, and children. And I saw firsthand how the needs of people are and are not being met by policies that we make in our state government. Initially, as a nurse, you work one-to-one with people, then you kind of work with communities, and I did that. And I wanted to bring my experience in health policy to the legislature. So my campaign slogan was then and still is trying to build a healthier Oregon. And with the challenges of COVID and a president that has somewhat, shall we say, unusual ideas about how to work in a pandemic, I would like to bring forth science-based research into our decisions. So that's in a nutshell why I ran.
Great, thanks. Aaron, do you want to see if you have sound?
It comes and goes. Tess, I think that to the degree that we can, you should try to run this interview, given that I can't seem to get a connection that works at all.
Okay. Sandra, we can move to you now. Say a quick introduction of who you are and why you're running, please.
Well, I'm retired, so I have time to think and to study issues a little bit more than I used to, especially with COVID, because up to that point I was tutoring. And I work with minority children and I tutor them for fun. And it is fun. I enjoy it a lot. My work experience background is a small business owner, teacher, reading consultant. I was a staff manager in an in-home health care giving team. So, and now I've been very much involved with the community and volunteering in a lot of different ways. And why I'm running, it's the most prosaic answer anybody could give, I think, and it is to give voters a choice. Right now, as I'm sure you all know, it's been only one voice here, and that's been the Democrat voice here. But I'm always re-inspired when I think about the words of Dr. Li, the Wuhan whistleblower, before he died from the coronavirus in China. He said a healthy society should not have only one voice. And so that's really the reason I'm running. I did not come with an agenda. I'm not coming with an agenda. But I do believe that a representative is supposed to represent then the ideas of the people and what we hear. So I've been doing a lot of phone calling and asking people, what are your thoughts, concerns, priorities? And they've been telling me. And so far, the top 3, besides all the riots, they want to see law and order come back. And of course, the effects of COVID are very serious. But it is homelessness, education, and taxes, businesses, how they work together, trying to provide and save families and businesses. And businesses are made up of ordinary people, of family people, and so on. And so the state has been very hard on families and businesses. And so those are my concerns as well. So it's a very fine fit for me and the residents and voters here in House District 27.
Great, thanks. And I was looking at the Oregon voters pamphlet. It says, I know you're running for the Republican, on the Republican ticket, but it said also Libertarian on there.
Right.
Could you explain a little bit about sort of where you fall on the political spectrum in terms of that, just to give us an idea of sort of where your values lie?
Sure. Well, they pretty much lie with the Republican Party and probably 80% with the Libertarian Party. The Libertarian, I respect them and I respect their desire for the freedom, and they are so focused on the individual. And that's good, but not, it should not be so focused so that we forget the needs of the community and the rights of community, because individuals don't live alone. We are none of us an island, right? We are connected to one another, and those connections matter. And we need to be able to respect the values and the standards of communities and realize that individuals live in communities. They operate in churches and in families, and those very particular institutions need to be guarded and protected and respected.
Thanks. I'm wondering too, Sheri, what would you say is the biggest difference between you and your opponent, besides simply the party lines, but beyond that, in terms of the actual issues, how would you describe that?
Well, I don't know a lot about my opponent's viewpoint besides, the typical party platforms, but I do know that Ms. Nelson was involved in an organization called the Eagle Forum. And I'm just operating off of what they have on their website about values that they have. They oppose things like gay marriage. They oppose things about women's right to choose. They oppose government intervention in childcare. For me, for example, I helped bring significant funding to our House district to get some funding for lower income families to afford childcare by renovating some space for the Beaverton YMCA right in our district. So those are some of the values that I have. I'm also, we talked about the different party things, not only am I a Democrat, but I also am supported by the Working Families Party, because I really try to stick up for people who may be marginalized, whether they are gay couples or they're people of color, whether they're immigrants. So I guess the difference is that platform of the Eagle Forum is very, very different and opposite of what I support.
Thanks. I want to follow up on that with you, Sandra. Do you want to comment? Can you tell us about this Eagle Forum and whether or not how involved you are with it and whether you support all of its views?
I probably do support it. Yes, I do. And I would, of course, choose to look at things a little differently. Instead of the negative, I would say I am pro-family, pro-life, pro-marriage. And that's a very different way of viewing things. Because there are very beautiful aspects of marriage, traditional marriage, very healthy aspects. And there are beautiful aspects to respecting all of life. And especially in the health field, one would expect people to really understand what life is. In fact, one of the questions that I would love to ask Sheri is what makes human life valuable? Is it something that is just decided on by individuals that say, well, I'm going to respect that person, but I'm not going to respect the other person because he's too little. We can't really see him right now, or her. What makes life valuable? And this is what, if it's just up to the individual alone to decide these basic questions, we have confusion, we have power plays, and I believe that there's got to be something greater than any human being that helps determine these issues.
So Sandra,
can I hop in?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great. Let's talk about some issues that are before the legislature. Can we begin with Representative Schouten? Tell me what bill you've passed since you've been in the legislature that you're most proud of.
Well, if you mean, I'll talk about my personal bill. We have, big bills that we do as, as a group, but my most favorite, I guess you would say, would be the drug take back bill. It has addressed a number of problems, but the biggest issue is we have lots of people taking lots of drugs and of all sorts, everything from Advil to, pain-killing drugs, anything, that when they are done with it, it sits around in closets and drugs get stolen, they get misused, they could poison the water, they could, all sorts of bad things. And so we needed to clean up these unwanted, unused drugs. Historically, we've been using funds for the police to come and have drug take back days, and they would gather them up, and then they would send them across the country to be incinerated. I felt that the drug companies have profited immensely from promoting their products, and they should be willing to clean up the mess that's left behind. Not the local law enforcement, not the people that tend to our clean water. So I ran a group of agencies, from clean water agencies to police to drug addiction programs to all sorts of groups that had, including pharma. And how would we solve this problem? I started it my first session when I started, didn't quite get over the finish line. Maybe was a little naive about how to work with big pharma, but we continued to work and work and work. I got other municipalities to come into the fold, and we were able to produce an agreement with pharma where they pay for the expense of cleaning up unwanted drugs. So now that's getting started. Later in the year, we will have every community in Oregon will have an opportunity to have a drug take back program where people can take unwanted drugs. You put them in it looks like kind of like a mailbox. It drops in, nobody can pull it out. And those drugs are environmentally taken care of appropriately. They're using a facility down in Oregon that you have to have a special permit to use it. That's why local law enforcement couldn't just drop in there and incinerate these drugs, which is the best way to do that. And the best part is the state of Oregon doesn't have to pay the manufacturers that these drugs are paying. So that was a huge win for people in this state, and tackled a very long-term problem that hadn't been tackled, at this level before. So I'm very proud of that work.
Great, thank you. Ms. Nelson, could I ask you to say what bill you would first introduce if you were elected?
I really do not have an idea yet of a bill. But what I would like to deal with is what the people in this district have told me that they want to do, which is to work with homelessness and lower taxation, or at least not higher, no more. We're just taxed to death here. And of course, education. I am concerned, and I would love to see school choice. Oregonians like choice, right? And the vast majority of low-income people want school choice. But unfortunately, it's being blocked primarily by the teachers' unions. They don't want any competition. And so unfortunately, the funds go to protecting teachers' rights and not necessarily the needs of the students. And that's a very big concern to me. And I know that you're supported, unfortunately, Mrs. Schouten, by the teachers' unions. And that concerns me when teachers have that kind of power that they can support legislators who want their money and need their money. And then legislators are kind of bound and don't have the freedom to make decisions that are best for others. And so that's a huge concern to me, because I know that people need school choice. They want school choice. They can benefit from school choice. It just seems to me that should be a natural bipartisan issue.
Okay, great. I understand.
Okay.
So where do you see the biggest difference, Mrs. Nelson, between yourself and your opponent? Where's the issue of difference that you would describe as being most important to you?
Well, first of all, I think I'm going to assume that we have common goals, and that should unite us. I really, really feel that deeply, that all of us want what is best for Oregonians, and we want what is best for our environment. The only beef I have, and it's a big one, is that so many of our laws are based on short-term goals and not looking for long-term consequences. For instance, the police reform. The legislature was called in just to do police reform. Well, part of that problem, as I see it, was that it was an hysterical reaction to the pressure that they felt. Now, in my opinion, and I work with something called Interfaith Peace and Action Collaborative, which meets with police officers, community members, business members, and people of faith in Portland. And we've met for about 4 years now to talk about the very issues that the state legislature was talking about. But the state, because of what happened in Minneapolis, Minnesota, they got terribly upset and anxious, and of course, riots all over the place. When we do have a wonderful system here, wonderful licensing for our officers, we have accountability, we have oversight, but the state legislature, especially through Governor Brown and the Democratic Party, went bananas on this and felt the pressure. Oh, we've got to do something, So I read all 6 of the bills that were passed, and they're pretty much window dressing stuff. They're not real serious. The one good thing about it was that it did talk about setting up a committee to review and to look at this. And I'm always in favor of further review and discussion and investigations for further accountability. We can always have improvements, right? We can always improve. But I do want to say that I think that the legislature has been very unfair to the police.
Can I ask a clarifying question real quick before we go over to your opponent for a response? You talked for a while about your position on the sanctity of life, and I just want to make sure I understand. You are against abortion in what circumstances? All circumstances?
I am for life, and I would vote.
I understand where you are on the abortion issue.
I believe that life is sacred, not because I declare it so, but life is sacred from conception to natural death. But I would vote for any bill that would further pro-life. So I'm not going to be hard-nosed about and say, oh, I could never support that or this. I would vote for anything that would encourage people to respect life at all stages.
And on same-sex marriage, opposed?
I believe that it's not really marriage, because marriage by definition is between a man and a woman. We can always change, definitions and pretend and construct a new reality, but it doesn't change the truth.
Okay. Tess, that answers the question you had, right? Representative Schouten, I'd love for you to respond to what you think the largest distinction is between yourself and your opponent.
Well, I just think it sounds to me like it's very different between more liberal and progressive policies and very conservative policies that it couldn't be really more opposite. I really support women's right to choose, how her body is able to, meet its own needs. We have to take care of ourselves. Some women, I have spent many, many years working with women. I personally never saw a woman that talked to me about the possibility of terminating her pregnancy that wasn't in great despair. It was not a frivolous decision. I believe it's a woman's business between her and her doctor. I don't believe that the state should pass laws that restrict that. We have no restrictions to abortion that in this state, and I want to keep it that way. I hope we continue to be able to have Roe versus Wade. That's a difference between us. As far as the police reform thing, we have right now a huge problem with equity. We have always had a problem with systemic racism in our country and our state. I mean, for goodness sakes, we started off as a state that was, very sympathetic to white supremacists and KKK. And there's a lot of anger still about this. And the police reform, my opponent said that those bills were a short-term sort of insight into this, or a short-term answer. I think they're a very long time problem that we're finally getting addressed. Those were issues that needed to be taken care of for equity. We need to listen to what's going on from people who are most being damaged. I think that my opponent said that we had a wonderful system. It was a wonderful system for white people. It was a wonderful system for police officers, particularly those few, and I emphasize the word few officers, that were kind of bad apples. They were able to hide behind their unions and not necessarily be able to have to be disciplined the way they should. So I think it's not unfair to the police. I've talked to many, people in the judicial system, the correction system. I have the support of our sheriff and our DA. They're both, I work with them a lot, and they believe that these are good measures as well, and support them. So.
That's actually leads to a question. I'm sorry if I seem hesitant. I'm just hoping that people can hear me. But that does lead to a question that I think is worth asking to each of you. And we have to wrap up, unfortunately. But who's the endorsement that you have, Representative, that you're most proud of?
Oh, gosh, I've got a long list of them. I think I'll go back to my roots, and that's the Oregon Nurses Association. They are why I got into politics. I was able to develop my sense of what families and individuals need. Nurses are consistently the most trusted organization, and they do really good work, and they stand up for people that need to be stood up for. And so I will say that.
Great. And Mrs. Nelson, same question to you.
Purposely not asked for any endorsements because I want people to look at me, and I haven't even asked for funds from anybody either. I realize the demographics and statistically the way it is in my House district, where the Democrats outnumber the Republicans more than 2 to 1. I know that. And so I haven't asked for people to invest heavily into my campaign, but I do care that they have a voice, and I hope that they look at my website, sandranelsonfororegon.com. I hope that they look at the voters pamphlet, and that they are able to see that there are big differences between us, and that we can improve things here in Oregon, and they need to be improved. There are so many systemic problems that we have in our legislature, in our government right now, years of mismanagement.
Well, that leads us to our last question. It actually doesn't lead us at all, but this is our last question. And it's a fun question that we try to ask every candidate to get to know them a little bit. And the question this year is, what's the most awkward moment you've had this year during a Zoom call?
Okay.
And Mrs. Nelson, we'll start with you.
I haven't had any awkward moment that I can recall, actually. I've been fully dressed.
Yes. And Representative?
Well, the one thing that sticks out in my mind early in the Zoom era, we try to be very professional when we're on Zoom, and I was running late and I hadn't had anything to eat, and I was trying to be very discreet, trying to take a little bite like this, and I bit into this plum and the whole thing squirted it all over me. And I had like this white shirt on, and it was just embarrassing. Everybody laughs, so yeah. So I've learned to make sure I've eaten before I get onto the screen.
understandable. We're all learning hard lessons about technology, as I did several times during the course of this interview. Thank you both very much for your time and your patience. We wish you the best of luck, and thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Have a good
much.
weekend.
Amen.
Bye.
Bye-bye.